I thought the new Kaom's spirit gloves looked cool and wanted to do something with them. Rage Vortex is a skill that sacrifices a percentage of your rage and scales damage and AoE off of how much you sacrifice, so you want to stack a lot of maximum rage and find a way to generate rage quickly, since rage on hit mechanics are unreliable and have a limited rate. Historically, this was done using either Chainbreaker or Red Blade Banner combined with Berserker's Warbringer. Chainbreaker is kind of annoying because it makes all your skills cost rage, so you won't be getting full value from your Rage Vortex, and you'll need to heavily invest in mana regen, so gearing is a bit harder. And Red Blade Banner isn't as reliable since it only generates rage if you're below 25, so you won't always have very high rage. I think these gloves are the best source of easy and reliable rage generation. Now, it's not without its downsides. You can't regenerate life with them. This is especially annoying as a Berserker since Rite of Ruin will be constantly degenning you. You can still recover your life with Leech, so you can sustain with Overleech with something like Petrified Blood or Soul Tether. However, you'll need decent investment into Leech to sustain like 9% life degen from Rite of Ruin plus the life loss over time from Petrified Blood. You'll also have to worry about running out of Leech during long invulnerability phases from bosses like Cirrus and Maven. So the route I chose was Eternal Youth combined with Dissolution of the Flesh. Eternal Youth makes it so that your life recharges like Energy Shield does, as long as you haven't taken damage in the past couple seconds. Now Dissolution of the Flesh makes it so that life that would be lost from taking damage is instead reserved. Since you're never technically taking damage, at least for this purpose, your life is constantly recharging, enough to sustain the degen from Rite of Ruin, all your skills which cost life, either inherently or with life tap, and the life loss from Petrified Blood, essentially nullifying its downside. We're using Petrified Blood because Dissolution's reservation doesn't care about your current life and starts from your maximum unreserved life, so you get Petrified Blood's 40% damage prevention on your entire life bar, globe. Combined with permanent sap and fortify and 3 endurance charges, you're not getting randomly one-shot. Except in uber pinnacle content like T16 essences. But wait, the synergy doesn't end there. Since we're low life with Petrified Blood, we get to use the Bloodthirst support gem, which gives physical damage based on your max life, and with Dissolution's 30% more life multiplier, you're able to stack a lot of life, which translates to a lot of flat physical damage. And what makes great use of flat phys damage? Voidforge. This sword initially has pretty low phys DPS, but it gives you a whopping 300% of your physical damage as elemental. So essentially, you get at least triple value out of your phys. As a side note, since it's an alternating 300%, you get bigger hits of each element, giving you better ailment effect, which we abuse with Secrets of Suffering. And also, as a consequence of stacking so much life, you get a lot of value from percent life regen because the rage is converted at a flat rate. So Rage Vortex throws a spinning copy of your weapon in a straight line, constantly damaging anything within its area. You can only have one Rage Vortex out at a time, so your clear speed is limited to how fast it travels. It would be cool if you could have 2 Vortexes out and maybe have them chase after mobs, then mapping would feel amazing. I can't complain too much though, since bossing feels great with this skill. You have pretty good damage uptime because it kind of acts like a damage over time area, and since you only need to cast every few seconds, you can focus on dodging stuff. The damage you can get on it with such little investment is also insane. Part of it is how you can essentially snapshot your damage for the entire duration of the vortex. So you drop your totems, pop Berserk, and your Rage Vortex will lock in the buffs and you don't have to worry about losing damage from your totems dying or Berserk draining your rage. This means running a double Ancestral Totem setup with Panopticon is a good way to get like 50% more damage. Alas, I did not do this because I was lazy and needed the sockets for Cast on Death Portal for Essence and Halter farming. Rage Vortex also synergizes really well with Intimidating Cry. First off, War Cries will exert the entire duration of the Vortex, so Warbringer gives you 50% more damage, then Intimidating Cry itself will double the damage of the Vortex. So you're pretty much tripling your damage every time you use Intimidating Cry. This build also gets incredibly tanky, at least versus hits. Like, we're just eating Shaper Slams, and that's without Sap and Fortify, which we almost always have up. Now some of you may be wondering, how do you not take damage long enough for Dissolution's reservation to reset? Well, you don't take damage if everything is dead. Jokes aside, the build is usually tanky enough to fight everything to the death before running out of life, and in most boss fights, you're not getting hit constantly, since they're usually designed around more telegraphed big hits you can dodge. Of course, that's not counting the uber pinnacle bosses, cause your damage isn't enough to trivialize them completely, and some of the fights have a lot of random little things that can hit you, especially Shaper, Eater of Worlds, and Uber Duber Elder. On a budget, this performs amazingly, but I wouldn't min-max it with the intent of doing uber bosses, cause dissolution makes it awkward, and there are better builds to min-max for this purpose. Maybe if you're more skilled than I am, add the double totem setup, invest a few more divines into gear, then sure, you can probably do it. I made this character to finish the Atlas, get my voidstones, unlock my favorite map slots, and it accomplished that. It's only level 93, so with a few more levels and better gear you can get like 10k life and some more damage, but I already got everything I wanted out of this build. Oh, I made a joke earlier comparing essence monsters to uber bosses. Yeah, occasionally you'll pop open an essence, the thing moves at the speed of light and hits like a truck, so it just runs you down right through your Rage Vortex, so you have to try to kite it back and forth inside the AoE, and sometimes they have a damage over time aura, so you're just melting as you try to flee them. I don't know if that's just cause I was altar farming with Wrath of the Cosmos, but some of the essence monsters are kinda cracked. I should also mention, damage over time is this build's biggest weakness. It doesn't get mitigated by your petrified blood or fortify, and even if it doesn't do that much damage, it prevents you from resetting your reserved life from dissolution. Because of this, I would re-roll Burning Ground and Caustic Ground on your maps. You can get the Burning Ground Pantheon, but I prefer this one because I don't have poison immunity. Your Pantheon choice is actually really important here because it gives us a lot of defense against damage over time, so upgrade them ASAP. In a similar vein, you also want ailment immunity because Ignite also cucks you. That's also why we run Steel Skin, cause it makes you immune to bleed. Most of the gear I'm using shouldn't cost you more than a few chaos and some essences, but I should mention I have a few expensive items that are totally not necessary, the most notable of them being the Frenzy Charge and Endurance Charge Grand Spectrums. Honestly, I think they're overpriced, but being able to use them across multiple characters because they're pretty plug and play in most builds makes them worth it to me. However, I probably wouldn't pay 30 divines for them or whatever they're going for right now. I got them really early on for like 40 chaos and 1 divine respectively. In a lot of builds, you can usually get frenzy charges and endurance charges in other ways, but these are really nice if you're lazy. The other more expensive items I'm using are Bottled Faith and the Interrogation. Again, they're not mandatory, but they're not that expensive and they're pretty worth it if you can afford them. Especially because you can use them in so many builds. The Interrogation also usually gets really cheap after the first month or so. Even without these items, your damage and defenses are gonna be fine. You'll be a bit weaker, but you'll still be able to do pinnacle bosses. If you're lacking damage, use the totems. If you want an alternative for the Interrogation because it's maybe not that versatile or the resale value isn't very good, you can use a Gale Sight to help with your crit chance. You're missing out on Scorch and Sap, but you get the ability to shock back, which is kind of nice. The mandatory uniques for this build are voidforge and Kaom's Spirit, obviously. Bear's Girdle is also probably too good to give up, but the build still functions without it, and they're like 2C. As for the rest of the gear, you want to cap your res, solve for ailments, get enough accuracy for over 97% hit chance, and get as much life as possible. Also, you'll need a bunch of dex and int for your gems, but you aren't missing out on too much if you don't have level 20s, and you have good access to 30 attribute passives here as a temporary measure. Other notable mentions are the Eldritch Implicits on your body armor. You want Fortify, which is pretty much always up. I don't know why I never see other people use this, it's insane. The Power Charge Implicit is mostly used to supplement the Power Charge generation on Assassin's Mark, cause with only the 5% on the gem, you'll notice them drop off occasionally. Oh, I almost forgot, I have a 6-link voidforge. I got that completely by accident when trying to get a 5-link. Anyway, you don't need that, though you might have to drop cast on Death Portal or increase duration on Steelskin. Yeah, video's done. Like and sub if you made it this far, I guess. Only 3% of you are subbed. Comment if I missed anything. See ya.